What is the human condition? Why is it important to develop compassion for the human condition? How do we develop compassion for the human condition? And welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shyra.
Hi, y'all. I'm Karista, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Love Always Self.
Hello, good morning, good evening, good night,
Wherever
good
you are in the
afternoon.
world, welcome. And thank you for joining us, and to all the new listeners, thank you so much for being here with us today and discovering.
Woo! Boy, do we have a topic for y'all today. So let's just dive in, I guess.
Yeah.
So today we wanted to cover a pretty broad topic, but yet specific. So one of the first questions that we were asking ourselves, honestly, that we wanted to go over was, what is the human condition? So this one I think is kind of a bit entertaining just because wow, I mean, we're all in it, right? Like we all have some form of conditioning. And so obviously we have some more definitive, like textbook definitive or definitions of what the human condition is.
So I think to broadly state it, the human condition is the experiences that we are like encountering throughout our lives, whether that brings us joy or happiness or sadness or feelings of anxiety. It's the experiences that we can only get as humans.
Mhm.
So it's not like coming in as a dog or an elephant or anything like that. We're coming in as humans. It's very material, it's very dense, it's, filled with lots of different perspectives and opportunities for growth and for resistance and whatever experiences that you came to learn. And on a more spiritual level, it's about maybe recognizing the interconnectedness, from the oneness that we experience as this individual being to recognizing that we are all connected throughout everything in the universe.
Right.
And so this awakening, transcendence, this enlightenment, all these terms of searching
Yeah.
for what does it mean to connect with and know our soul in its connection with everything else too, the I am.
The I am. I want to read this wiki description that when just doing a search of the human condition or define the human condition. The human condition can be defined as the characteristics and key events of human life, including birth, learning, emotion, aspiration, morality, conflict, and death. This is a very broad topic that has been and continues to be pondered and analyzed from many perspectives. That one makes me chuckle. That's not in there. I just said that. Including those of anthropology, art, biology, history, literature, philosophy, psychology, and religion. As a literary term, the human condition is typically used in the context of ambiguous subjects such as the meaning of life or moral concerns.
I was actually just thinking about that, how one of our human conditions is to ask and search out what is our life purpose. Like I don't think my dog asked that question. She's just like ball or squirrel. That is my purpose. She knows. We have no idea.
But what's interesting is when you say that though, I have had these moments where I have like this little staring contest with Webster, who is my beautiful fur baby. And I've looked at him and sometimes he'll like tilt his head at me or like he'll open the mouth and do the thing, where it looks like he's smiling or maybe chuckling a little bit. And the thought will pop into my head that you came here to provide me comfort and love. and joy and playfulness at the time that I needed it. So, I mean, in retrospect, I mean, thinking about it in that nature, it kind of makes me feel like maybe Webster had a purpose, and that was
Sure.
that soul's purpose in coming into this life. And hey, speaking of purposes, definitely check out our last episode
On Earth School.
on Earth School.
But, the difference is I think dogs, they're not sitting there contemplating,
Yeah, maybe they're a
"What
bit
is
more
my what am I going to do with my life?"
they're more in the moment.
Absolutely. They're
Yeah,
very much now creatures.
yeah.
Whereas we're just we've got a lot of mental things going on.
Boy, I know.
And so, like, the human condition can be influenced by numerous factors as well. So, wherever you're born in the world, what kind of family values you grew up with, or religious ethics or morals, how you experience your family dynamic growing up, those all are facets
Yeah,
to the human condition.
absolutely. So this next question, why is it important to develop compassion for the human condition?
Well, first, I think we need to clarify what compassion means.
Mhm.
So, compassion is the ability to hold empathy for somebody else's experience. So, to clarify again deeper, there's a difference between empathy and sympathy. So, sympathy is you're able to hold pity for somebody and what they're experiencing, whereas empathy is you can actually put yourself in their shoes and you can actually kind of understand what they're going through, maybe not directly, but indirectly by imagining yourself in that experience. For example,
Right.
have you ever watched those commercials where they're like, give money for this hungry child,
Oh, those
right?
are heart
And
string pulling.
it's when we're having pity for that, we may still give either way, whether it's pity or sympathy or empathy. But the point is can you put yourself in their shoes and imagine yourself starving and searching and you know foraging to find scraps?
Right. So when you're working on developing compassion, it does feel like sometimes, and I feel bad for even saying this out loud, but, this is my own working on self-judgment aspect, but sometimes I do, have to work at it. Like, I have to work at trying to be compassionate towards a certain individual or a situation that's not happening directly to myself because maybe I'm not involved, right? So
Mhm.
the empathy and sympathy commentary there is actually a really good one to focus on. When you have a connection to somebody going through a situation, whatever that situation is, because you might have experienced something similar, it's so much easier to feel compassion towards that. I'm not saying I'm not compassionate for things that are happening around the world, but there's so many times where it's hard to try and focus on situations. For instance, example, something that happens to a group of individuals on the other side of the planet, a location I've never been to, a situation I've never seen outside of a news story that I'm hearing for the first time. And you'll be like, oh man, that's terrible. But I know people that read those stories or see those stories and it makes them cry,
Mhm.
like, they feel it to their core, and I sometimes don't. Not all the time, there are plenty of times where I've heard a story and I'm just bawling, but again, I have a little piece of my history that's connected to it where I can relate to it a little bit easier. So it's just so much easier to have compassion for those individuals because I have some kind of a connection historically in my life or maybe present in my life.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes sense. Um, but don't sell yourself short
right.
because when you watch shows,
Oh, that's
fictional
true.
shows, and you are deep into the story and you feel like you're a part of the story. And so it's easier for you to connect with those emotions that those characters are
Oh,
feeling.
100%.
So
Yeah.
it's not that you don't have compassion, right? Like that's not it at all. It's and I agree that sometimes for some people it can be easier when
Right.
they've experienced something similar to develop that compassion. But I think the whole point is that developing compassion for the human condition, so this is a why do we do this, is because this can help us to connect with others on a deeper level
Yeah.
and create more empathy and understanding and support and that community aspect that we talk about regularly.
Right. Right. And just having like the awareness and remembering that we're, it's so much easier to say we're all one, right? It's a lot easier to say that out loud than to conceptualize it or feel it.
Mhm.
And so when I am having a moment of compassion, because again, I mean, oh, this is complicated. It's not it's not like I have these times where I'm completely outside of a situation, personally speaking, where you're completely outside of a situation and you can feel compassion for a situation and you're hearing that story like right then and there. And you're connected to it, but then like maybe a week later it's not on your mind anymore, right? So scenario style situations, I guess. Those are a little bit more how do you build that compassion for individuals more consistently, I guess, is the next question in my head.
Well, just because you have other things going on and it may not that thought and that compassion may not stay at the forefront of your mind, it doesn't necessarily go away, right? Just
Right.
because it's not right in front of you, it doesn't necessarily mean it disappears.
Right.
Um, I think it's a good practice to have also in our day-to-day interactions.
Huge.
I'm gonna throw you under the bus again here. Um, like in traffic.
I mean, I may have
Like
some historical road rage there, you know?
so, like, in your mind, you are the main character, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. We're not pointing fingers or anything here. Well, I guess I kinda did with the throwing you under the bus, but, I digress. But it's like in the moment when you're in traffic and say somebody else cuts you off and you're in a hurry, well, having that compassion to be able to share the road too and be like, "Ugh, they're obviously in a hurry too," and recognizing that this one car isn't necessarily gonna throw everything off. So, in that moment, you have a choice, like, be angry, be hostile, and that's more detriment to yourself than maybe them directly in front of you, unless you rear end them, but you're gonna avoid that.
I like my car.
You like yourself
I like
too.
myself too.
And you like your insurance premiums the way they are.
All of the above.
But maybe knowing that you're in a hurry and they might also be in a hurry, like, "Okay, practicing that P word again, like a little bit of patience."
It's well, and here's the fun part. Usually in those circumstances, we're just gonna use the road rage situation for a minute here. But in the actual moment, as soon as it happens, right? And you have the instant reaction, which a majority of us do. A majority of us have an instantaneous reaction, and once that occurs, it's normally for me immediately following that instant reaction where I feel guilt
Mm,
or I feel bad.
mm,
I remember that I have been shown that my words and my energy can affect others, even though I don't see it physically. And so there's always this retract within,
mhm.
right?
Like walking back.
Like walking that back just a little bit. Oh, so sorry. I just yelled at you, even though you'll never know that, you know? Like that is very much part of my human compassion towards others, right? 'Cause then I'll start pondering, "Oh, you don't know what that person's going through. What if they're also having a bad day?" Right? All those moments tend to weigh in on the situation immediately following the instant reaction. So it's almost kind of like in order for us to be able to practice having more compassion towards others in the human condition is also having that compassion towards yourself.
Mhm. Mhm. Giving yourself some grace.
Mhm.
Another example that just popped into my mind was in the medical field. Like we want to support individuals' decisions, whether or not they align with best practices.
Mm.
So, for example, say somebody comes into an ER and they've been in a whatever accident and they're bleeding and they need blood products. It is their choice, and they are going to make that choice based on their beliefs, their morals, what they grew up with, or what they've developed later in life as far as maybe religious beliefs or, educational beliefs and things like that, to decide whether or not they're going to agree with the doctor's recommendation to receive blood products. For example, Mormons, that I think it's Mormons, they do not believe in receiving blood products.
Oh,
So even if somebody needs
like a
a
transfusion or
transfusion,
something.
yeah, um, that is against their beliefs, and we would like people to be autonomous, and they should be the leader of their care team. So whether or not we agree with it personally, we honor or should honor that. So that's just like another example,
Wow.
developing compassion for
Yeah.
other people's choices.
'Cause that's gotta be hard in that situation too, because you know that what you can offer can help.
Mhm,
And so you're trying to express compassion with the knowledge and the skill set that you have towards that other individual by offering them the service that they need in order to feel better. But then you have to also have the same level of compassion, knowing that it goes against whatever it is that you believe in
mhm.
to support their personal decisions and their personal beliefs.
And this is a huge conundrum in, my body, my choice.
Mm. Ooh, yes, it is. And it's honestly like even just using that very specific example, it applies to almost everything that we do as humans. You have so many groups and individuals that have different religious beliefs, different practices, different way of living, how they take care of their physical bodies, or how they, style their homes, or just all aspects and walks of life. And it may not align to how you feel it is or how you believe that, it should be or shouldn't be. And so when you go into and this is just making me go down this rabbit hole really quick. I do that. And when you go into the thought process of, no, you should be doing what I do because that's the right thing to do because that's what I believe.
I have a physically negative response to the word should.
Don't we all?
I should do this, man.
The coulda, woulda, and shoulda.
Mm, so let's maybe dive a little bit deeper, for a
Yeah,
moment into why
right.
we want to develop the compassion for the human condition.
Well, I mean, like I was just saying a second ago, because I believe that it starts with self. I believe that the more you develop the compassion for yourself, the more it's easier to see and feel that for others. There's a lot of times where your reflection of your lack of compassion for yourself is then given or expressed towards somebody else. It can change, in my opinion, it can change the way we work as humans together, the way we run our businesses, the way we decide on what types of foods are good for us or even are produced. Like understanding that we're going to use a food part for an example because that's something I'm kind of focused on right now. When there is a thought that I want to create a business and I want to sell a product, and my product is going to have these specific ingredients in it, and I know that some of the ingredients in my product is going to be harmful and it's going to impact others, or there's a risk of giving someone cancer or causing them to lose hair or whatever, right? Depending on the product, of course. Like, if I don't have compassion for others, then my decision making on producing this food item and then distributing it to others, there's a lack of care there, right? You've now created something that can be harmful. And so compassion is kind of a big deal. You know what I'm saying? To allow us to live better lives. And so there is a decrease in the harm and just having a better life in general for not only yourself and for others.
I keep going back to the medical field. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years. So,
Makes sense.
one of the things that we are I see us shifting away from is this practice of paternalistic style of care, where the doctor tells you what to do and then you do it. You don't ask questions, and God forbid you do ask questions and you're going to get a finger shaking at you. Just do it because I said so.
Mm,
So when that happens, there's a big disconnect that happens. So not only does the patient that's needing care feel shut off, like they can't talk to them, so they can't tell them what else is going on, other factors that might impact what the recommendations were. But not only that, like any advice given from the doctor is like, they didn't hear me. How can I trust their
right.
advice if I don't feel heard?
Yeah.
That that is an important aspect of compassion, is listening when you have the opportunity to have a conversation,
Right.
is listening and even clarifying and making sure that you're understanding maybe what the other person is experiencing so you can develop that compassion,
Right.
so that you can release judgment, so you can shift perspective, so you can zoom out. There are so many different answers
Yeah.
and options. And to be narrow minded, I think, limits our ability to connect, to support, and to love.
I agree with you. And that takes me back that the human condition, again, comes in so many different aspects. It is not a one size fits all. We are all different, and yet we're all the same. And so we all share the fact that we have souls. We all share the fact that we come from a place of love. We all share the fact that we come from the same makeup in general. General. And
I mean, at some point, we're all sisters and brothers, right?
um I can't think of that. So, but I mean, with that though, we come and we express energetically, which turns into something physically. We express ourselves in different ways because we came here to have a unique experience, to grow, to do all the things. See previous episode.
Earth
Earth
school.
School. Keep forgetting what it's called. And because of that, though, I always want to go back to why can't humanity allow the humans that we are expressing conditions and different ways of being, allow that to just be without having to place judgment on others, without having to have a lack of compassion, because with the lack of compassion increases your judgment. Like, can we just be in a place where as long as we are not causing harm to one another and we are allowing each other to express who we are wherever we are, to just allow that to be, allow that person or individual or human to have that experience. I saw the most incredible episode yesterday where this lady was talking about her experience on the other side. And I know I've brought up NDEs, near death experiences before recently, but it's just kind of the rabbit hole I'm currently going down at the moment, listening to these stories and seeing and understanding similarities in my channeling and when I astral travel or things of that nature, right? So the story that this lady was expressing was when she went to the other side, her experience with her guides was that she was getting to pick and choose if she wanted to come back. And when she chose to come back, because her guides were showing her, here's all the things that you're going to learn when you do. And then she got to choose what physical condition would she have upon her return?
Hmm.
What injury would she have to sustain? And while getting to choose said injury, she said that from that perspective, because I was in this other dimension, other place, non-physical, they were having a good laugh. Well, if I come back and I can't see out of my left eye, my life will be like this. I will learn all these things. And I found that so fascinating because I was like, wait a minute, hey, we get to choose that? That was the first question that came to my head. I was like, you get to choose what injuries you sustain and learn from? That's interesting,
Hmm.
right? Which led me down the thought process of probabilities. But anyway, and then, but it also allowed me to understand a little bit easier from hearing this story that if we are all coming here to make these choices, to have these experiences, can we allow others to just have that and be compassionate towards it? Like, and express those types of things. Rant done. I know that's a ponderer.
But there's still that opportunity in developing compassion for the human condition, even after we've experienced pain or hurt or
Yeah.
discomfort from whatever interaction or whatever experience that we had. Like, that's when we go into that zooming out, shifting perspectives, and transmutation of the past experience or energy.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that a lot of our conditions, a lot of the things that we have been conditioned with, location, family, history, lineage, right? The things that are carried down from your ancestors all the way to your family dynamic, the way your parents raised you, the
Education
education
system,
system that you've been
the
given,
religion.
all of that, that literally conditions us into being the people that we are today, into being the humans that we are today. Those conditions that were given and taught to us, and then we took forth and carried out and continue to keep, right? All of that because I mean, think about it. Like, oh my gosh, I keep thinking of Tarzan. Well, I don't know why that's popping in my head right now, but I'm thinking of Tarzan, right? Like Tarzan was raised by animals and his conditioning was to behave like an animal and not a human. And he had to learn how to be a human. And so I'm just thinking of that for some reason that just kind of really does assist you in thinking about how your surroundings has conditioned you.
That reminds me of a book that I read earlier this year, A Stranger in a Strange Land. And it
Mm.
was about a human that was born on Mars and grew up on Mars without interacting with any other humans. So he was raised by Martians.
Oh, wow.
And then humans went back out to Mars and brought him back. And he had to learn what it was like or how to navigate this world as a human within the rules of society.
And I bet was the story presented in a way to where it was based on only his perspective?
No.
That's cool because I was just thinking about the perspective and the compassion. Was he given compassion from others? Like, wow, you've never been on Earth? A concept, first of all, but like,
Well, and, like,
y
having to learn why, like, sexuality is a taboo and why, you
oh,
should
could you
hide
imagine?
all of your body parts and it's not okay to run around without clothes on kinda thing,
Could you just imagine? Anyway.
all he had to learn all these limitations that we've created throughout
Ooh.
centuries, the human
The
condition.
human condition. Yeah.
So what's our final question?
Oh, yeah. Our final question here. How do we develop compassion for the human condition?
We've I think, covered a lot of these recommendations in past episodes, but we're still going to cover them today. Um, because it's about connecting with others, it's about releasing judgment, it's about self observation, reflection. and mindfulness.
Yeah.
So, I guess the first one we can go off of is practicing mindfulness,
Yeah. Absolutely.
knowing your history, what conditions you grew up under, what limitations you still hold true, and practicing that mindfulness and knowing that other people may not. In this mindfulness practice, we can start to develop better understanding about some of the struggles that other people are going through, as well as our own,
Absolutely.
and how we are responding to those things. So, if there's a trigger, right? So, if you, let me think of an example.
You can even use the going back to the road rage one, right? Uh, what triggers me to
Yeah.
have those moments? It's not like I started off driving and having road rage. And sorry, pops, to call you
I
out,
don't know.
but
I was going to say, did you learn that maybe from one of your parents?
of course I did.
Yeah.
And I love y'all very much. And I am not judging you for this because it was entertaining in those moments. But
And you learned it from somewhere too.
exactly.
It's not
Exactly.
inherent.
Right.
So yeah, the mindfulness when a trigger comes up, somebody cuts you off, being mindful of knowing this is my pattern,
Yep.
and wherever you stop it in that pattern, you're doing a great job. You're in progress.
You've created awareness. Step one.
Definitely a necessary step
You're
to
right.
making changes or releasing judgments. Another one, cultivating gratitude.
Hmm. That's a big.
So when we come to experience Earth School, Uh, we're just gonna name that one throughout the entire episode.
Right.
So when we come to Earth School, one of I think the hardest lessons that we learn is that even though we experience this life as separate, as an individual, learning that we are connected to all and developing that appreciation for that interconnectedness.
Right.
So we have to feel separate to truly understand and appreciate the togetherness.
That's a really big one for all of us. All of us is learning again the contrast to understand which is the best feeling, right? And having that's such a beautiful statement, Carrie, and very wrapped into like one very positive moment there because having that separation from I am perceivably, right? Just perceivably allows us to want more of the connection,
Mhm.
allows us to learn that we don't like it and we'd like to go back. So
What's that saying, like, "You don't know what you have until you don't have it, or you
mhm,
lose it," or something like that?
right,
So, that's the life.
right.
We don't have it
Yep.
because we have it or had it, but we perceive that we don't, and so once we move closer to it, we garner greater gratitude.
I like the whole, like, uh, as another example towards that, I have always liked my hair being straight because it's just easier to manage and so on and so forth, right? More for practicality reasons. But everyone I talk to when I wear it curly is like, "I wish I had curly hair." Isn't that crazy?
Mhm.
Anyway.
When you don't have something, you want it.
Exactly.
So, one of the things that gratitude does, do we know? One of the ways that we practice gratitude for ourselves in our shifting perspectives about ourselves is positive affirmations. So, when we practice positive affirmations, we're actually teaching our brain to pattern more in that positive way of thinking. So,
Yes.
when we practice gratitude, we're teaching our brain to be more active in that positive nature.
Yeah, agreed.
And so, in that positive nature, we're crowding out the judgment.
Ooh, I like that saying. We're crowding out the judgment. What are some other ways in which we can practice becoming more compassionate? So we know that it starts with self, and we know that gratitude, positive affirmations are included in that. Um,
I was just thinking this is a thought that I've been trying to process and develop words for. Like I keep seeing the visual, but the communication part of it, that's the difficult part. So when we become upset at something, so say something happens, somebody else does something that goes against our beliefs and we judge them for it. So what happened in the past to create this belief that that wasn't okay?
Mhm.
Where did you learn that from? Was it, from parents just making a one-off like, "Oh, don't cry," you know, "Oh, don't cry over spilt milk," kinda thing. Like, "Oh, good girls are quiet." Those kinds of, statements where they may not have intentionally caused this pattern, but they do.
Right,
They leave little marks. We remember those little things. So, later in life, when we're triggered because somebody goes against that belief, and we judge them for it, and we require them to go back in this box, or we say, "I can't interact with you
right.
because you're going against my belief." So then we're actually creating greater separation.
Yeah, the division. And this is, very prominent in multiple aspects of humanity, whether it's religion, race, gender, all of the above. And so I like to ask the question, is my belief causing harm to others?
It's pretty easy.
Sounds so easy. It makes it very frustrating when you feel like that's a very easy statement, but yet it's not practiced every day.
Mhm.
And it's not something that is incorporated in everyday lives across the board of humanity.
That's a tough one to teach,
Mhm.
right? Like, how do you maintain awareness of how your choices are impacting other people?
It's a very tough one to teach because it requires us to look at it from other people's perspectives
Mhm.
and have compassion while doing so.
Mhm. I do have to say, my mom did a great job with that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
However, there can be an imbalance too,
Yeah.
to where you are constantly thinking about other people. And so you're not making any choices that are right for you, but right for everybody else.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It's learning how to balance that.
Little cookie that we're still trying to tickle little nibbles off of.
Another one, learning how to develop compassion for the human condition, this is a hard one, is practicing forgiveness.
Yes.
I know that I mentioned this in another episode that just because we forgive does not mean that we're saying things are okay
Yeah,
or that we're giving permission for people to treat us a certain way, over and over again.
absolutely.
That forgiveness may be, I'm no longer interacting with you, but I'm also choosing not to hold on to my anger,
Right.
because recognizing that when you hold on to that anger, you're hurting yourself
Yes.
and you're keeping yourself that anger or that resentment is like a weight and
Yeah,
it's holding you down. So doesn't it just feel a little lighter to let go of some of the luggage?
I agree. It would be. And wouldn't it be great if we had an easy button that we can just and it's gone. So, things to work on.
Um, the final one, and I know that you've mentioned this, and so we're gonna full circle here. It starts with self-compassion.
It starts with you. So, how can you provide yourself with compassion? Well, lucky for you guys, we are called Love Always Self for a reason. So, please feel free to go through a multitude of our episodes where we talk about self love, self care. We actually did a self love series, and our self love series literally helps with this step, with being able to provide compassion for yourself and starting with yourself. Because remember, if we're all connected, you are part of that connection.
I'm gonna circle back to the first, second, and third recommendation. Practicing mindfulness with yourself. Where are your thoughts going? Are they in a negative habit, a negative thought pattern? Are you still stuck with limiting beliefs? So, practicing mindfulness about your own patterns of limiting beliefs, practicing positive affirmations and gratitude for all of your experiences, big, small, great, not so great.
Yeah.
They all give us lessons.
Right.
So, a little bit of self reflection, and then also learning to forgive yourself for not being perfect in the first place,
Yeah.
for not coming into this existence knowing all these things already.
For having an immediate reaction and then feeling guilty about it afterwards. Like, again, we're human.
It doesn't help to chide yourself and shame yourself. Shame doesn't help lift us up.
Right.
It's okay. I recognize I could have done it better. How would I like to do it next time?
And
And then visualizing that and then like making that verbal proclamation. I am going to do it like this next time with the goal and grace.
well said. Awesome.
All righty.
Ah, it's our favorite time of our episode, which is the collective reading time, y'all. So let me bring in this other camera right quick. Oh, today we are going to be using the Light Seers Tarot and the guidebook. This is by Chris Ann. Chris Ann, I do love this was actually my very first tarot deck.
Nice.
This one, because it is based off of an actual tarot, I've been using the guidebook to help me with, whether it's a major arcana or a minor. Is that a thing?
Hmm.
A wands, cups, swords, pentacles, like that thing I'm still learning. So I use this deck a lot, mostly for the intuitive part of it. We shuffled 3 cards, 4 came out. I asked my guides, count from 1, 2, and 3, show me which number to remove so we can keep you down to only 3 cards. They told me to remove 2, so these are the remaining. I have not seen the cards yet, by the way, and neither has Carrie.
All righty. So we're going to go for card number one, the Three of Cups.
3 of Cups.
So this image on this card, the background is like a very light purple, lilac color. I can see several stars in the sky. There are three women standing with their arms around each other and their backs to us, all in some sort of flowy dress. And again, their arms are around each other. And the one on the left looks like a blonde with her hair pulled around to the side. You can see kind of a tattoo on her upper back. I can't tell what it is. Some swirls, maybe a water sign. I'm not sure. We have to look into symbols.
Right?
That's close to should. Meh.
Meh.
I would like to look into symbols. There we go. The woman in the middle, she is a Black woman, beautiful long hair off to the side again. And on the right, looks like a redheaded female with her hair pulled up. And again, they're all facing away from us and they're standing in a field of what looks like lavender.
Ooh, I love these colors. So, 3 of Cups from this book. I'm going to give you just the synopsis here, but friendships, abundance, cooperation, community, closeness, closeness with siblings, joy, communication, celebration, and soul contracts.
I just thought about another way to develop compassion for the human
Yeah, let's hear it.
experience is actually discussing your experiences with other people.
Communicating. Yes.
So, other people have different perspectives, have different experiences, and they can shed light and help you develop compassion for other people if you don't have, that understanding.
Mm. Agreed. And this is interesting. I'm just going to read a little piece of this book here, but your mutually loving and beneficial bond carries vibrational attractions that are often ancient. And any setbacks arising from miscommunication or disharmony with others may be old wounds or patterns that are resurfacing to be healed. I find that sentence connected with, how the conditions that we've had, whether it's ancestral to most recent, parents, and how that all of that conditioning carries down,
Mhm.
and how some of those conditions can even be miscommunicated throughout the time lapse.
That's funny. I just thought of this story. So this was, I think, a story I read online. So not a personal story, but there's a family that every year they make a ham for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and every year, the person making it's like, I have to cut the end off, and then we wrap it, and we braise it and cook it and whatnot. And so the child learning how to make this is like, but why do we cut it off? Well, that's just how we do it. That's how my mother did it. That's how her mother did it, so on and so forth. We have to cook it this way. This is how we cook the ham. And then that child finding, again, I don't know the exact, I'm just
That's right.
recalling, so it may not be the exact story, but then, this child finds the recipe from several generations back, and on that recipe, it says, "Cut the end off if you can't fit it in the pan." And it was all because the pan was smaller. So, year after year after year, they're wasting a whole end of a ham because that's how they were taught to make
They
it.
misinterpreted it.
Now that they have a bigger pan, they didn't have to.
That's hilarious. That's a great example. What's our next card? Oh my
All
goodness.
right, card number 2, the 2 of Wands. All right. So this card is more of like a sunset theme. There is a woman that is sitting on the ground inside a maybe a home or a building or maybe a dojo, and she is on like an orange carpet. There is a globe, one that turns, on the ground next to her, and she's holding one of the wands while another one is sitting behind her against the wall, and she's gazing out the window out towards the sunset.
So we've I
There's a
find
little like Volkswagen van on the
is
bottom left.
that a travel guide?
I think so.
Interesting.
It's got a little surfboard.
I find the globe part interesting because of our Earth School episode and how we've mentioned that several times. We used a globe in the intro, and there it is.
So, one thing on this card before you read from the book, I think this is also an opportunity for how we develop compassion for the human condition is we travel, we go experience
Mhm.
other people and their conditions and what it's like for them to live in the place that they're at or maybe experience their religion or whatever it is. We're traveling so that we can learn and we're not just making assumptions and judgments.
What better way to be compassionate than to be in the shoes of someone
Yeah,
else?
to experience.
Mhm. Well, planning your future, making progress, activation. That's big right now, y'all.
Mm.
Possibilities, the choice between your comfort zone and new adventures. And I'm going to pick one sentence out of the little whole blurb here, but only way to make strides towards your goal is to make your move.
I was just thinking like we get really comfortable in our conditions
Very,
and it can be easier, although not nearly as fun or comfortable, to
right?
stay in those conditions, those limitations, those limiting beliefs.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you can. And we have such opportunities. I did not just say that. It literally says the world is filled with opportunities for adventure, and I welcome them into my life with planned action. We have a lot of opportunity to spread awareness. And I think a lot of different communities, a lot of different individuals are participating in that, whether it be here on a YouTube platform or on any of the podcasting platforms, whether it's in a social interaction or discussion. We have an opportunity to be more connected to one another. We have an abundance of possibilities and probabilities in which we can all focus our attention towards. So, again, it starts with you. It starts with what is it that you want to participate in? And again, there's no judgment into this whatsoever. But ask yourself, is what I am focusing my attention on? What are the activities that I'm participating in? Are my beliefs harming others or myself? Because you're part of that. Okay, digress.
Card number
Card
3,
number 3,
the sun.
the
Oh god,
sun.
this card is beautiful. Uh, so big bright sun in the middle of the card, very ethereal. There's lots of colors behind the sun. It's almost like this tie-dye sky, and from the sun, there is this light that is, oh gosh, is this like it's like electric. It's this beam of energy coming down from the sun, and I don't wanna say, like,
She's
aggressively
soaking it up.
hitting, there you go, she's soaking it up.
She's
There is a
soaking it
woman
up.
standing in a field with her arms spread open, her face up towards the sun, and just bathing in the energy of the sun.
And this is a number card. It is part of the major arcana in tarot. So it's number 19. Haha. This whole beautiful part of everything that we've been talking about today, and that we are part of I am. And the very first thing I see when I open this is the affirmation to use with this card, which is I am whole. I am more than enough. I shine like the sun when I am happy. And I feel that is so beautiful. This card is about joy and inspirational success, abundance and fulfillment. Everything I think we are all trying to strive for. Exuberant creativity, positivity, love, manifesting dreams, inner beauty, and it is considered a yes card. So if you had a question in your mind when you are being presented with this card right now, think of the answer to any questions you might be asking as yes. This card is usually very much so presented at a time of a question being asked, whether you needed a yes or no.
I also think that this is an important reminder. A lot of this developing compassion for the human condition and developing self-awareness and compassion for self, sometimes that's a lot of inner work, and reminding this card reminds us to sometimes set down the work and just play and enjoy.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Oh man, what a beautiful I had asked the cards when we were first going into this. I had asked the cards to, "Hey, do me a favor and give me only the cards that are going to pertain to whichever topic we choose." Now, mind you, we shuffled the cards before deciding between the two different topics that we had planned for today. And uh either way, I think either one of the topics that we would have chosen, this would have actually really aligned with. So well done, guys.
Mm.
But I also ask during the shuffling process that whatever messages that are coming for the greatest and highest good for all of those that are interacting with this at this time or whatever point in reference in which you see or watch this video or listen to this uh, transmission. So I think it's good that, we ended with the sun card, that we ended with the yes card, because one of the questions I had in my head before you flip that card over is, will humanity ever get to a place where we can all be kind to one another and less divisive? And so we got a yes.
I love it. I think that's another topic.
Stay tuned. And by the way, speaking of staying tuned, if you are enjoying our content, please do not forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It's somewhere down there. For all of those listening here on YouTube, if you're listening on any of our podcasting platforms, leave a review and feel free to share because sharing is caring.
It really does help us reach more people, and
It
that's what
does.
we wanna do. We wanna be able to spread this message of love and spread the message of connectedness, and, we need your help.
Yeah, we do.
We need your help by liking, by sharing, by subscribing, so hop on the train, y'all.
It helps.
Toot
We
toot.
got to deal with algorithms. This is the nature of the beast here. We also have social media. So if you prefer to follow us and some of our very short form content, you can do so at Love Always Self. And of course, we have a website, lovealwaysself.com. We do put all of the tarot decks or the oracle decks on our Amazon shop. And yes, we do get a little kickback if you click one of those affiliate links within that shop. So thank you for supporting us that way. We appreciate it.
We just really appreciate you guys.
Yes, we do.
And we hope that we are filling your hearts as much as you are filling ours. And I think with that, don't forget to love first
Love last.
and love always. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista.
And I'm Shyra.
And until next time, remember to love first,
Love last,
and love always.